Welcome dear students. Today we will discuss about two of the most vital tools that we have in biodiversity conservation. The IUCN Red List of Threatened Species and the Red Data Book. These resources are indispensable in our ongoing efforts to understand, monitor and protect the incredible diversity of life on our planet. The IUCN Red List of Threatened Species, often simply called the Red List, is a comprehensive and authoritative resource that evaluates the conservation status of plant, animal and fungi species worldwide. It's published by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, that's IUCN, and is widely regarded as the most reliable global inventory of the conservation status of species. The Red List helps track species that are at risk of extinction, offering essential data for conservation planning, policy making and awareness. The IUCN Red List is a rich compendium of information on threats, ecological requirements and habitats of species, and on conservation actions that can be taken to reduce or prevent extinctions. It's based on an objective system for assessing the risk of extinction of a species based on past, present and projected threats. Discussing some key features of the IUCN Red List. The IUCN Red List of Threatened Species is a comprehensive global inventory that assesses the conservation status of plant and animal species. The process for listing a species on the IUCN Red List follows a rigorous and standardized methodology, ensuring that assessments are scientifically credible and consistent. Here is an overview of this process. Starting with species assessment. Selection of species. Experts and organizations identify species that may require assessment. These species could be rare, declining, or have limited distributions among other factors. Then there is data gathering. Scientists and conservationists compile available data about the species, including information on population size, geographic range, habitat, threats and ecological role. Discussing the criteria for evaluation. The IUCN Red List evaluates species based on specific criteria, which include population size, that is, how many individuals remain and whether the population is stable, increasing or declining. Then their geographic range, the total area in which the species is found and how fragmented or stable that area is. Then there is the rate of decline, the percentage of decrease in population or range over a specified time period, small population size and decline, the risk of extinction due to a small declining population. Quantitative analysis. For some species, models or projections of future population trends are used to assess extinction risk. The IUCN uses following categories to assess the conservation status based on these criteria. First, there is extinct, that is, a designation applied to species in which the last individual has died or where systematic and time appropriate surveys have been unable to lodge even a single individual. Then there is extinct in the wild, that's a category containing those species whose members survive only in captivity or as artificially supported populations far outside their historical geographical range. Then there is critically endangered species, a category containing those species that possess an extremely high risk of extinction as a result of rapid population declines of 80 to more than 90% over the previous 10 years or 3 generations, a current population size of fewer than 50 individuals or other factors. Then we have endangered species, a designation applied to species that possess a very high risk of extinction as a result of rapid population declines of 50 to more than 70% over the previous 10 years or 3 generations, a current population size of fewer than 250 individuals or other factors. Then we have vulnerable, a category containing those species that possess a very high risk of extinction as a result of rapid population declines of 30 to more than 50% over the previous 10 years or 3 generations, a current population size of fewer than 1000 individuals or other factors. Then we have another category called near threatened, a designation applied to species that are close to becoming threatened or may meet the criteria for threatened status in the near future. Then we have least concern, a category containing species that are pervasive and abundant after careful assessment. Then we have a data deficient category, a condition applied to species in which the amount of available data related to its risk of extinction is lacking in some way. Consequently, a complete assessment cannot be performed. Thus, unlike the other categories in this list, this category does not describe the conservation status of a species. Then we have not evaluated, a category used to include any of the nearly 1.9 million species described by science but not assessed by the IUCN. All else being equal, a species experiencing a 90% decline over 10 years or 3 generations, for example, would be classified as critically endangered. Likewise, another species undergoing a 50% decline over the same period would be classified as endangered. And one experiencing a 30% reduction over the same time frame would be considered vulnerable. It's important to understand, however, that a species cannot be classified by using one criterion alone. It's essential for the scientists doing the assessment to consider all 5 criteria when determining the status of the species. Then we have expert involvement. The IUCN Red List process relies heavily on expert opinion. Scientists, conservationists and specialists, in particular taxa, contribute to the evaluation. They compile data, assess trends and apply the Red List criteria to determine a species status. Red List authority. Each group of species, for example, mammals, birds, amphibians, etc., has a designated expert authority, such as the IUCN Special Survival Commission, responsible for reviewing the data and making assessments. Then we have peer review. Before a species is officially listed, the evaluation often undergoes peer review by other experts to ensure accuracy. Then we have data verification and consultation. Consultation with local experts. Local and regional experts may be consulted to ensure that the most recent and accurate information is used. This includes scientists in the species' native habitat, field biologists and conservationists. Then we have public input. Some species assessments might be open to public consultation for feedback, especially if the data is contested or unclear. Then we have final Red List categorization. After a thorough evaluation and review process, the species is assigned to one of the IUCN Red List categories based on the criteria. This results in an official conservation status for that species. Then finally we have Red List update. The IUCN Red List is updated regularly as new data and research emerge. Changes in the conservation status can reflect improvement. For example, a species may be reclassified from endangered to vulnerable if conservation efforts lead to recovery. Worsening. Conversely, if a species population declines further, it could be moved to a more threatened category, such as from vulnerable to critically endangered. The updated Red List is then published and made available to the public, governments and conservation organizations. Then we have use and impact. The IUCN Red List is an important tool for conservation prioritization. It helps direct conservation, funding and resources to the most threatened species. Next we have policy and legislation. Governments and international bodies may use Red List data to create policies, conservation programs, and legal protection for species. For public awareness, it raises awareness about biodiversity loss and the need for conservation action. Then it is scientific research. It provides a baseline for researchers studying biodiversity, extinction risks, and ecological trends. Talking about the key challenges in this process, we have data deficiency. Many species, particularly those in remote or poorly studied areas, lack sufficient data to make an accurate assessment. In these cases, the species might be listed as data deficient. If you have changing criteria, as new information or methods become available, the criteria for listing species may evolve, affecting how species are categorized. Overall, the IUCN red listing process is designed to be transparent, scientifically rigorous, and globally consistent, ensuring that species assessments accurately reflect their conservation needs. The International Union for Conservation of Nature, that is IUCN, Red List of Threatened Species is a comprehensive assessment of the conservation status of species worldwide. The latest update as of 2023 highlights the ongoing biodiversity crisis, with many species facing significant risks due to habitat loss, climate change, overexploitation, and other human activities. Some of the key takeaways from the most recent IUCN Red List update include: overall threatened species. As of 2023, over 41,000 species are assessed as threatened with extinction, that is almost 28% of assessed species. This includes mammals, birds, amphibians, fish, and plants. Then we have mammals. A significant percentage of mammals are facing extinction, with nearly 25% of species classified as threatened. Many iconic species such as tigers, elephants, and rhinos are in peril due to poaching, habitat loss, and human-wildlife conflict. In amphibians, amphibians continue to be one of the most threatened groups, with nearly 40% of species facing extinction. This is primarily due to diseases, habitat loss, and climate change. Then in marine species, we have a growing number of marine species are under threat, particularly fishes, coral reefs, and marine mammals. The impact of overfishing, pollution, and climate change, for example, ocean warming and acidification, is profound. Then we have plants. Around 40% of plant species assessed are threatened. Deforestation, climate change, and land conversion are key drivers of plant extinction risk. Then we have the regional focus. Some of the most critical regions are tropical and subtropical areas, where biodiversity is richest but also most vulnerable due to deforestation, land use change, and illegal wildlife trade. Then we have the conservation successes. There are some positive updates with species like the bald eagle, black-footed ferret, and certain whale populations showing signs of recovery due to successful conservation efforts. Then we have climate change. Climate change is increasingly recognized as a major threat to biodiversity, exacerbating other pressures like habitat loss, leading to shifts in species ranges and altering ecosystems. The IUCN Red List underscores the urgency of global conservation efforts, stressing that while some species can be saved through targeted action, many face an uncertain future without stronger commitments to biodiversity protection, habitat restoration, and tackling the drivers of species decline. So let's talk about summary of latest IUCN Red List. Recently, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, IUCN, Red List underwent an update featuring thousands of new species assessments and reassessments. This information was presented at the 28th Conference of Parties, shedding light on the escalating impacts of climate change on a diverse range of species. The IUCN Red List now includes 157190 species, of which 44,016 are threatened with extinction. So, what are the key highlights of the report? These are climate change that threatens diverse species. Species ranging from Atlantic salmon to green turtles face growing threats due to climate change. IUCN Director General emphasizes the urgency of ambitious climate action to combat species decline. The IUCN Red List update underscores the interlinked nature of climate and biodiversity crisis, urging joint efforts for sustainable solutions. Then there was freshwater fish assessment, the first comprehensive assessment of global freshwater fish species is revealed. 25% of assessed freshwater fish species are at risk of extinction. Climate change, pollution, overfishing and invasive species contribute to the decline. Impact on Atlantic salmon. Atlantic salmon, that is Salmonella, are ray-finned fish that can grow up to a meter long, found in the North Atlantic Ocean basin. They are anadromous, meaning they live in both fresh and salt water. Atlantic salmon population declined by 23% from 2006 to 2020, moving them from least concern to near threatened. Green turtles facing extinction. Central South Pacific and East Pacific green turtle populations are respectively endangered and vulnerable. Climate change poses threats throughout their life cycle, impacting hatching success and food sources. Then we have mahogany trees that are facing endangerment. The big leaf mahogany, Swetna macrophylla, a sought after timber tree, shifts from vulnerable to endangered. Unsustainable harvest, urban encroachment and illegal logging contributes to a 60% reduction over 180 years. Then we have some conservation success stories, that is scimitar horned oryx, a desert antelope, moves from extinct in the wild to endangered, showcasing successful reintroduction efforts in the Republic of Chad. Then we have saiga antelope that improves from critically endangered to near threatened due to conservation measures. So, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, that is IUCN Red List. The IUCN Red List is the foremost global resource for assessing the risk of extinction among animals, fungi and plant species. Accessible to all, it serves as a crucial indicator of global biodiversity health. It offers comprehensive insights into species characteristics, threats and conservation measures, playing a pivotal role in shaping informed conservation decisions and policies. The IUCN Red List categories define the extinction risk of species assessed. So, 9 categories extend from not evaluated to extinct, critically endangered, then we have endangered and vulnerable species are considered to be threatened with extinction. It is also a key indicator for the Sustainable Development Goals and HE targets. The IUCN Red List includes the IUCN Green Status of Species, which assesses the recovery of species populations and measures their conservation success. There are 8 green status categories, that is extinct in the wild, critically depleted, largely depleted, moderately depleted, then we have slightly depleted, fully recovered, non-depleted and indeterminate. A green status assessment examines how conservation actions have affected the current red list status. The IUCN Red List underscores the urgency of global conservation efforts, stressing that while some species can be saved through targeted action, many face an uncertain future without stronger commitments to biodiversity protection, habitat restoration and tackling the drivers of the species decline. The Red Data Book is a publication or report that lists species that are considered to be at risk of extinction, categorized based on their conservation status. These books are produced by national and international conservation organizations and are closely related to the IUCN Red List, but While the IUCN Red List is a global assessment, red data books are often country specific and more focused on species found within a particular region. Some key features of the red data book are: first, we have species categorization. Species listed in the red data book are categorized based on their risk of extinction. The categories typically include extinct, that is, species that no longer exist. Then we have extinct in the wild, species that only survive in captivity or outside their natural habitat. Then we have critically endangered species that face an extremely high risk of extinction in the wild. Next, we have endangered category, species at a high risk of extinction. Then we have vulnerable, that are species at a risk of endangerment in the future. Then we have near threatened, species that could become endangered in the future. Then we have least concern category, species that are not currently at risk. Then we have data deficient, species for which there is insufficient information to assess their conservation status. Second, we have the purpose of conservation. First, we have action. The red data book is an important tool for guiding conservation efforts. It helps policymakers, researchers, and environmental organizations focus on species that require urgent attention and resources. Then we have public awareness. It raises awareness about endangered species and the importance of biodiversity. Then we have monitoring. It allows for the monitoring of species populations and trends, providing insight into the success of conservation efforts. Next, we have global versus national red data books. First, it is global. The IUCN Red List is the global standard assessing the status of species worldwide. Then we have the national. Many countries or regions maintain their own red data books. For example, India's Red Data Book of Indian Animals or the Russian Red Data Book, which focuses on species specific to their territory. Some examples of Red Data Books of India: the Red Data Book of Indian Animals and the Red Data Book of Indian Plants list species native to the India that are endangered or threatened. The Russian Red Data Book categorizes endangered species across Russia, including mammals, birds, amphibians, and plants. Then we have United States. Although the US does not have a single red data book, the US Fish and Wildlife Services maintain a list of species that are endangered or threatened in the US under the Endangered Species Act. So what are the key goals of this red data book? First, it is documenting biodiversity, that is, to create an official record of the conservation status of species within a specific country or region. Then it helps in supporting conservation priorities. It helps prioritize species conservation efforts based on their level of risk. Then it is fostering research and action. The book can serve as a foundation for further research on the cause of species decline and the development of effective conservation strategies. So, what is the difference between Red Data Book and IUCN Red List? The IUCN Red List is a global assessment tool, while the Red Data Book can be specific to a country or region. The Red Data Book includes more detailed local data, for example, population numbers, habitat specifics, and regional threats, whereas the IUCN Red List is more focused on a global overview of species conservation status. The Red Data Book is a critical tool in the conservation of endangered species, providing an organized and systematic approach to documenting, prioritizing, and taking action to protect species that are at risk of extinction. While the IUCN Red List provides a global perspective, national red data books play a crucial role in local conservation efforts, helping guide region-specific interventions and strategies to safeguard biodiversity. So, as we come to the close of today's discussion, I want to take a moment to reflect on the key insights that we have gained regarding the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species and its critical role in the conservation. The IUCN Red List is more than just a catalogue of species. It's an essential tool for understanding the current state of biodiversity, providing a clear and comprehensive assessment of the extinction risks faced by species around the world. From least concern to critically endangered, the Red List offers us invaluable data that helps prioritize conservation efforts and guides decisions on where to direct resources, attention and action. As we leave here today, I encourage all of us to take the knowledge and inspiration from this lecture into our work and daily lives. The Red List provides us with the data we need, but it is our responsibility to translate that knowledge into action. Together we can make a difference. That is, every effort counts and every species saved brings us closer to a future where biodiversity flourishes, not just for its own sake, but for the well-being of all living beings, including us. So that's all for today. Thanks.